This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome to Business by the Numbers. I'm your host, Hunt Demarest, CPA with Parmelis & Associates. So this week, I have a special guest, Chris Cotton, fellow podcaster on the Aftermarket Radio Network, and also a coach with Autofix Auto Shop Coaching. Really, the original topic we wanted to talk about was what he found in real life working with shops and what it kind of looked like on the benchmark report that we've been talking about. But what it evolved into is a number of things. So that is exactly what we're going to listen to this week. Before we get into that, I want to just stop and say thank you to you and the rest of the dedicated listeners. Remember, if you have any questions or want to be a guest on a future episode, shoot me an email at info.podcast@parmelis.com. Also, we cannot forget our dedicated sponsors, NapaTrax and Promotive, for being such loyal supporters of the show. Hey, did you know that NapaTrax is on-site training plus 6 days a week support? It all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business and how you run it. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Let us prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. Visit them online at napatrax.com. That's napatracs.com. Great news. You now have a hiring partner to help you with the heavy lifting of hiring your next superstar. Introducing Promotive, a full-service staffing solution for your auto repair shop. Visit them online at gopromotive.com. So just want to welcome Chris Cotton to the show today. Chris is a fellow podcaster and also owner, coach at Autofix Auto Shop Coaching. So Chris, just want to say thanks for coming on here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've been listening to the benchmark reports, the first 3 episodes, and then reached out to you, and boom, here we are.
Yeah, and so Chris and I were kind of going back and forth on email, as you probably listened to a couple weeks ago, discussing the benchmark report that we did, comparing top shops, not top shops, different kinds. I wanted Chris to come on here and kind of talk about this, and we talked about this before we started recording. In some aspects, I think the numbers are nice because they simplify things. And yeah, to a certain extent, numbers don't lie. But also, it does oversimplify some aspects, right? Like we were touching on before, LHRO and productivity. When you looked at the benchmark, what was the biggest thing that you saw, or where did you kind of see that translation between the benchmark and what you're dealing with the shop owners every day?
Well, the reason why I reached out was I sent an email saying, hey, this is the same thing we're seeing. 50% of the country's flat right now. 50% of the country is paid hourly or something like that. And there are shops that are successful at either. And I think my comment to you was it's all the leadership. Like you can have whatever pay plan you want, but if the leaders are terrible, then it's just going to be a bad shop. Like there's no getting around that. I have a new saying I've been using, and it's N squared L, numbers never lie. So we're both the same on that. Like the numbers are what they are, and that's how we can coach unemotionally because we're coaching numbers and that's it. We don't know your people. We don't know your bullshit stories. We don't know your employees' bullshit stories. We just know how to look at your numbers and be like, oh, here's what we need to do to fix to move forward.
And you hit the nail on the head there. All these numbers are all outputs, right? It's like, well, this is the end result of more or less people's behavior, your own behavior, your employees' behavior, your customers' behaviors, vendors, and, essentially spit out in numerical form, and that's what your financials are. But the tricky part about that means that if I want to fix my numbers, then I'm not actually working on my numbers. I need to be working on something else. And that's where, a lot of times I talk about this is we go through a lot of numbers, and yeah, I can tell you how much more money you would make if you increase your productivity, or how much more you would make if you fixed your parts margin. But these things are a lot harder in real life because now we got people involved. Now we have emotions.
And the way I look at it, or the way we look at it is whatever number we're trying to fix, there's 3 to 4 things that feed into that number. And so the fix is not the fix. The fix is fixing those other 3 or 4 things that feed into that. Like you mentioned parts margin. Okay. Are you using a parts matrix? Well, if you are using a parts matrix, is everybody sticking to the parts matrix? Core returns, parts, all of those things, 4 or 5 things that feed into the parts matrix. And then you can look at labor hours per repair order. There's cause and effect things, 3 or 4 that feed into that and either make you successful at it or not. And if you're watching those numbers, if you're watching the numbers and the cause and effect, then you can change anything. Like if you track it, it can be measured, and if you can track and measure it, it can be fixed.
One of the things that you just touched on there that was, you kind of just skimmed over it, and I thought it was a really topic to highlight, was you have a parts matrix. Is it being followed? Would you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's actually a really important issue that a lot of people don't actually understand.
It's one thing as a coach to be like, hey, here's a parts matrix, follow it. But what happens is everybody thinks you're nuts. And if you don't go in with the authority to say, hey, this is the parts matrix, follow it, and you do not have the authority to change the parts matrix, then guess what? The parts matrix will get followed. Like we were talking before, in our shop, before I even met the staff, I had TechMetric up and running. The parts matrix was in. What has happened is it's caused the opposite problem, is because there are some things that you just can't matrix. And I've looked at a couple of tickets and I've been like, holy shit, we can't charge that for that. Like, we got to back off. But what it's created is it's created a shop that on our parts, we're at 50 to 55% all day, every day. Nobody questions it. The shop people don't question it. The customers haven't questioned it. And again, you have to set the boundaries with your employees. Like, this doesn't mean you get to choose when to use the parts matrix. Like, the parts matrix is in there for a reason. You need to follow it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple idea, but really, and I see this a lot on the number side, which is why I wanted you to highlight this, is, we'll see 35% margin in QuickBooks, and it matches TechMetric, NapaTrax, whatever they're using. And then we look at, their parts matrix, and maybe it's a mutual client of ours, Chris, and we can easily tell that they're not following it, because unless there is a bucket less than 35%, there's no way they're following the parts matrix. And sure enough, I've looked at these and it's like, well, your lowest GP is 38%. So how are we averaging 35% if your guys are actually sticking to the parts matrix, which a lot of times they aren't? And I think that where, kind of this ties in is, if I'm a shop owner and I'm looking at this benchmark report and I'm looking at the top shops, I need to be careful if I look at my parts matrix and say, man, these guys are getting this much, I'm getting this much, I need to increase my parts matrix. Maybe the first thing that you need to verify is, like you said, are your parts matrices, are the process and procedures actually being followed? If a shop wanted to do that, when you work with shops or you actually do this yourself, how do you audit these? Are you doing random audits? Do you have a process behind it, or what?
So first, I want to back up just a second and say that after listening to one of your podcasts and seeing I think it was the one you did an episode on changing your parts matrix to adjust for inflation. That's the one we have. That's the one we're using. Is like, I came up with my own and we're using that. Really, the quick audit is a lot of our shop owners now have gotten away from paper. They've gotten away from Mitchell and some of those older antiquated systems. And we're able to go into a ticket. And if I have the login and password, I can click on the profitability analysis on it and see real time what our labor margin is, what our parts margin, everything else like that. And if you do a quick audit through about 8 or 10 tickets and you're like, hey, our margin's way low, what's going on there? You can spot it really pretty quickly. Whereas 10, 12 years ago, we couldn't, because we didn't have systems. We had to go to the owner beliefs. The other thing that I think holds people back on the parts margin is, you get back into misguided belief systems. I had this conversation with a bunch of other coaches yesterday, and they were talking about shop owners that are still doing like $29.99 oil services or $39.99 oil services. When I set those up in our shop, we're charging about $45 to $50 for the labor side of it. And then we're making over 50% margin on the filter. And then our oil, one of the things that we did is they were getting it in older cubes. So we switched to bulk. And so we're saving $1 a gallon now, or $1 a quart, and making that margin on there. So I say all this to say this: most people, if they haven't shopped and gone to another place for an oil service in like 20 years, and they're like, oh, that's what we were charging 20 years ago, you can't go to a Valvoline Instant Oil Care or Valvoline Express and get a full service synthetic oil change for less than $120. So why are we doing what we're doing?
They're smart enough to see those signs.
Yeah, I guess. So to me, I think, again, it's just our brains are all mixed up and we're living in the past, and we really need to get to a point to where we're living in the here and now. And if you're doing a better job than they're doing a DVI and everything else, then you should be worth that. Shouldn't be anybody at this point using low price oil services to drive car count. Like that makes no sense the way we're doing things now.
It all kind of comes down to what kind of business that you want, right? If you want to have a business where you are in everybody, every car, then yeah, do a low price oil change. And Firestone and a lot of those big guys do, because everyone is their customer. Now, most shops that you and I deal with have A customers, B customers, C customers, and anything below that is probably not their customer. So, it's kind of funny when people are, very selective. They're having, less than 100 cars a month, but then are trying to bring in someone that's going to drive from 2 hours away. Gives me flashbacks to the days of Groupon where people were selling discounted, extremely discounted Groupons, and none of those guys were coming back, right?
Right. Yeah. They were very unhappy. Out of all the people that I saw that ever used Groupon, I saw 2 markets that actually worked in, and I think it was more to do with the Groupon deal than anything else. But the other thing is what happens is when you do that is you get in such a hurry because you have all these oil services you're trying to kick out, then you don't do a good estimate. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, my average repair order is $60. Great. And then that's when you get in the, I have to have more cars cycle instead of slowing down and doing better on the cars you have.
Yeah, and that is a really good segue there, Chris, because what I wanted to talk about next was you just hit on a couple of things, right? What is your labor rate? How much you're selling that for? How much your sales are on a monthly basis? Even to a large extent, the overall average repair order. None of those showed any sort of relationship from profit. If we compared labor rate, if we compared sales, there was no direct relationship between any of that stuff going up and profit. When you kind of touched on that of, well, hey, sometimes having too much work is actually not a good thing. I think that that's a common issue that you and I see a lot, actually. When people figure out the advertising, they figure out how to get people in the door, and what we see is a record month, and they made no money on it. So talk about kind of what that looks like in real life on the counter and stuff like that.
Well, again, it's kind of like the old saying, like there's a duck gliding across the water, but below the feet are just going crazy. It's because they're really, really busy at not making money. You can have a shop that has a 30% gross profit that does 100 cars a week and does $200,000 a month. But if your gross profit's like 20, 25, 30%, then you're netting zero. And you have to look at individual things to see what is the cause of that. Somebody wrote, I took offense to it actually, and wrote a big blog piece, but it's one of those things where like you're posting on social media, you read what you wrote and you're like, yeah, that probably doesn't need to be out there. But somebody was like, I'm tired of all these coaching companies. They just come in and they say, change your labor rate, raise your margin, whatever. Well, guess what? That's because it's all screwed up. That's the things that we need to do to fix your business first. It's not like we would take somebody that's making a 25% net and telling them to raise their price. And we're telling somebody that's making a 3% net or negative percent net, hey, you're going to continue to go out of business if you don't do these things. Again, those are a good, easy things to fix, but labor rates trackable, effective labor rates trackable. And you and I talked about it earlier. If you can track it and measure it, then you can fix it. And those are all things that can be fixed.
And you touch on, again, a ton of good stuff there, but I have seen that same consensus or the same kind of gripe about coaches. Well, yeah, they're going to tell you to come in, sell more, raise your prices, and be more productive. It's like, well, that's if you were able to do all those, you would have never hired coaching companies because you may be making 30% profit. So, yeah, they all are going to tell you that. But again, you're looking at outputs, not inputs. They're not going to come in and do more sales for you. They're not going to come in and, get customers to pay more money for same services. You got to put the inputs, you got to put the work and manage. Let's hit on that one because we talked about parts a little bit, and this one really has to do with labor. And it's kind of funny when people say, well, hey, come in and raise your labor rate. If you are looking at your labor gross profit, you're selling it to a customer for something and you're paying a technician another thing. Outside of productivity and efficiency, what we'll talk about in a little bit, the only way to make more money is either increase the amount that you sell to the customers or decrease the amount that you pay your technicians. So I always think that's funny. It's like, well, you want me to increase my prices to my customers? No, you could do it the other way. You could decrease, how much Steve makes on flat rate or hourly. Well, that's not an option. Well, then we're doing that. But like we mentioned before, no coach is going to come in and say, hey, we are just going to fix your labor rate and nothing else alone, or, something outside of that. And even though we talked about there is no relationship between labor rate and profit, that is talking about all shops. if you are going to raise your labor rate and you sell the same amount of work, you're going to make more money. That's simple math here. But the big piece that we really can't measure or you can't see as easily is the productivity side of things. What we saw in that benchmark report is there was a ton of people with really similar labor rates with very similar technician costs that had wildly different gross profit. And the only number on there that we actually saw any sort of relationship with profit was productivity. When you go to a shop that is struggling with productivity, or do you think that all shops are struggling with productivity? Like, how do you even start with this, or how do you even identify if you're one of those shops?
So one thing that I would like, maybe next year in your survey, we can ask this question. What is your labor hours per repair order, or LHRO? I think that would give you some great insight into that. And remember, we said you have one thing and we have these 3 or 4 things that tie into it. If you talk about productivity, then the one thing to me that ties into that is labor hours per repair order. If you're thinking about, I think the standard's been pretty much the same. This is what we shoot for with our shops. There's a couple different areas. So general repair shop, we should be about 3 hours per repair order. And I don't care if you're doing inspections, oil services, or whatever. That's still keeping all those in there, including everything, and should still be about 3 hours per ticket. And then when you get into a Euro shop, it should be about 4.5 hours per ticket. And a diesel shop should be right in there, the same with the Euro, about 4.5 hours per ticket. And the ones that we see that are lower productivity are ones that are less than the 3 hours per ticket. One of the things we do is we look at average estimate to see what we're writing up, and then we tie that into the ticket.
NapaTrax has made selecting the right shop management system easy by offering the industry's best, most comprehensive SMS. It all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business and how you need to run it. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice, and having a local representation is a huge plus. Customizing Trax to your business, whether you're a one-person shop or a large multi-bay or multi-location company, our representative consults with you to help optimize your shop's workflow, efficiency, and profitability. And unlike the other guys, we'll be there for you after installation with the best training and support in the business with a learning management system tailored to each role in your company. Simply put, Trax was designed and built for shop owners just like you. Visit us on the web at napatrax.com. That's napatracs.com. Are you tired of spending endless hours searching for the perfect talent to join your team? Promotive is your full-service automotive staffing solution. At Promotive, we believe in being more than just a recruiting agency. We become an extension of your team, working tirelessly to ensure we place the right talent with the right shops. With our always be recruiting mindset, we're constantly seeking out the best professionals in the industry. We manage 90 to 95% of the recruiting process, taking the burden off your shoulders. When you partner with Promotive, you gain a dedicated recruiter and account manager who will work closely with you, understanding your unique requirements and seeking out candidates who fit seamlessly into your shop's culture. We'll ensure that every candidate we present is thoroughly vetted and aligned with your needs. With Promotive, you'll have a peace of mind knowing that we're handling the recruitment process with expertise and precision. We don't just match resumes, we match character, culture, and long-term success. Visit our website at gopromotive.com today and experience the power of Promotive's expertise and dedication. Together, we'll build a stronger and more successful team.
If I'm listening to this, Chris, so let's say I have a shop and my labor rate's $150 an hour. You know, if we're saying 50-50 parts and labor, then my ARO should be around $900.
Yeah. So your average repair order for a general repair shop should be 6x your labor rate. That's the 3 hours times 2, and then whatever to 6. And then for a Euro or diesel shop should be 9x your labor rate.
You're looking at that. Would that be skewed? Because I'm a numbers guy, right? So I'm already thinking averages and outliers and medians. But is that applicable for everyone? Let's say maybe I'm a shop that I don't really touch those big jobs, right? I don't replace engines. I don't get into rear ends. I'm not going to hit that home run 30 hours, which we all know is in that ARO pool. Is this number pretty constant where you guys have seen, hey, if you're doing the heavy line work, you maybe even should be higher than 6 times your labor rate for a general shop?
Yeah. If you're a general repair shop and you're doing engine rebuilds, engine pulls, stuff like that, then yeah, you should be closer to 4 hours probably. It just depends on mix. But as a rule of thumb, I can walk a group of shop owners and say, hey, these are the targets. This is where we should be going. And, I'll let somebody be like, hey, we're a special case, whatever. Fine. But really, if you're just a brakes and suspension shop, if you're doing pads, rotors, brake fluid service, you're probably close to 3 hours a ticket and then close to your average repair order goal.
I get you. That kind of makes sense. Like if you quantify that, into like what I would see as a consumer's eyes, if you're doing a proper brake service with flushes and pads, whatever, that's probably around 3 hours for most people. And so it's like, hey, that your average day looks like that. I got where you were going with this, but I'm like, have you put a bow tie on it? We were talking about productivity. You went right to average labor hours per ticket because I see a number that has an analysis that has a relationship between profit. And then what Chris actually mentioned there is, well, we have another number that has a relationship to productivity. So really, again, we can't fix the productivity, but what Chris has found is, hey, it's not a perfect science, but if you can increase the amount of hours per ticket, you're actually going to see an increase in productivity. So talk about that a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So obviously, if we make the labor hours per repair order go up, we're going to see an increase in productivity. Sadly, most shops that when they come to us, they're in the 55 to 65% productivity range. It's not a stretch to get them to 85, 90% fairly quickly. We have a lot of Euro shops that are 100 or right in there. And I'm going to throw one more thing at you. Our Euro shops, they see an average gain of about 10 to 12% productivity. It's the same amount of hours. So those shops that before making that move, we're at like 95, 100%. Now we're 112, 115, 120% productive. So just interesting fact to throw in there on you. But yes, selling more hours, being more productive will make you more money because you are covering your base, if you will. If you look at what's going on in California where you're paying your techs hourly, the techs are making the same for their 40 hours a week. It's up to you to get your technicians and service advisors to sell more hours to cover that pay. And by doing that, that makes you more productive.
Yeah. And the thing about it is it makes everyone more productive. Let's look at that on the counter. If you have a customer, it's at least 2 phone calls. If you have it in the back, it's at least 2 test drives for a technician, pre-test drive, post-test drive on it. If you have 8 cars in a day, averaging 1 hour a ticket, that's 16 phone calls and that's 16 test drives. If you have 1 car, that's 2 and 2, And so in those extreme examples, it's pretty obvious, but a lot of this, and I've obviously come from outside the industry, an accountant on this, and I see other things, but that number, how long it takes for someone to turn over a table, right? This is measured in the hospitality industry. This is measured in the restaurant industry. All of those people know, all right, if we have a table for 2.5 hours, we know that table is used for 3 hours and 15 minutes because that's the fluff around it. And I don't think a lot of shop owners, I'll ask you, do you think a lot of shop owners know what their turn time is? Of, hey, do you know how long it takes for you to check in a car, check out a car before that technician is actually on that job?
No, they don't. Because a lot of times what we see when we're first working with shops and getting into productivity, technicians are there at, say 7:45, 8 a.m. And then the service advisors spend the first hour writing up tickets or whatever. And then the technicians are still standing around not working on anything. And so, that's one of those things you have to look at. Like, how soon do we get those cars out? When we had our previous shop, I was big on, we open at 7:30, techs get there at 8. That way it's given us 30 minutes to come in and get everything written and make sure that the technicians have something to work on. Now, that's in a shop where you're getting everything done every day and there's empty bays in the morning. Other thing I would say is if you have empty bays when you get there in the morning, you need to have somebody staging cars or whatever, getting ready. That way the technicians can go right to work. I think for really good shops, like the shops in the top 20% of your survey, they have the technician productivity down. And the next big gains for the industry or the next big gains for them in their shop is service advisor productivity and how they handle, how they maneuver. It's so much easier to write a ticket now than it was 12 years ago that there has been some advancement in a lot of that stuff. One of the things we noticed in our shop was we went to online scheduling. So people can go to Google My Business and schedule. And they have a voice feature. And I was trying to set up the voice feature. And so our shop's general repair and tires. So the phone rings off the hook all day long with phone calls we want, phone calls we don't want. But I was trying to set up this voice feature. And when I did, it's supposed to answer after 3 rings in case you're busy and whatever. As soon as I did it, our phones went dead and it was picking up like on the first ring, like it wouldn't even ring in the shop. So it was picking up on the first ring or before the first ring. And it has a feature in it that says, hey, we're busy taking care of other customers right now. If you want to go ahead and schedule online, click number, or if you need a tow, click number 2. If you want to schedule online, click number 3. And within minutes, like my phone's buzzing from all the people scheduling appointments through that feature. So I was going to turn it off, but I haven't yet. So we've been running for over a week and my phone and email light up all day long with people doing appointments. Now you can go in there and leave a voicemail and then we'll go back in and answer it. But it's made the service advisors be able to focus on the tickets more, write better estimates, and then they can follow up when they're available.
I think that there's something in there about thinking that you know what the solution is. At the end of the day, you're trying to solve your customer solution. So listening more than telling is huge there, right? Well, I would have thought, right, if it's me and I'm with you, if I call up somewhere, I'd rather be like, hey, you can't bring my car in tomorrow. Here's what's going on. I personally wouldn't like, if they said click 3 to book online, I'm young and I'd be like, I'm not doing that. But like you said, our customers like it. Our phone is, buzzing because people are booking appointments. At the end of the day, if no one talked on the phone and they booked all those online appointments and they show up and fill the schedule, there's a prime example of, not being a micromanager and being able to say, this is different than how I would have expected. This is working, right?
Right. Well, every morning I wake up and I'm like, okay, is today the day I go in and turn that off? But I'm like, the other thing is that it does it after hours too. So I wake up in the morning and there's like 3 online appointments that were booked overnight or whatever. And it tells you if this was a new customer or a current customer. And, so far it's been filling up the appointment book more and more every day.
Well, like one of the things that Amazon has mastered, right? Other than, a lot of probably bad things, but where Amazon kind of got their foothold is they have a frictionless business and they are obsessed with making it easier to do business with them. So much so that they've ruined the entire, kind of commerce because they spoil us that we can get stuff the same day. I don't even understand how it works. I can order a ink cartridge at 8:00 and it's there in 3 hours.
The drone flies it in and dumps it in your yard or whatever. Yeah.
It's probably going on somewhere, right?
Yeah, they're actually doing it in places in Texas.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think that's where it is. But the communities are fighting back because the noise is so loud from the drones that they're like, this is basically a mini airport. So it's kind of crazy is what I've learned so far. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also why Amazon is so successful is because, hey, for our customers, we will do anything. We will crush whoever else is in the way, competition, not our customers. But they have a loyal customer base that continues to come back because they kind of spoil you. And I think a lot of times for business, just like we were talking about before, not every customer is your customer, but also a lot of people there are yelling, I need more sales. I need, more productivity. Are you making it easier? Like, is the funnel point in your business, the customer experience? And just, I don't really need to talk to you. I just want to come in there and you guys got to get me new tires, right? I will book it right now.
If you dig into Amazon stuff a little bit deeper, talking about productivity, like how easy is it to roll a package out the door, have the drone pick it up, fly over all the traffic and deliver a package in 30 minutes that would normally take 6 hours or whatever like that. And if you go back to like how Amazon, there was like a major weather event that shut down UPS, FedEx, and whatever. And Amazon had all these packages out for delivery. This was before they started their own air fleet and everything else. It was such a cluster that they're like, okay, we need to get rid of this and do it on our own. That way we control when we fly, when we deliver, when we do all the rest of it.
I think that was that one holiday season, right? Wasn't it like one Christmas where like FedEx was like, we're not getting your stuff till like January?
Yeah. And what had happened is Amazon guaranteed a lot of next day deliveries for Christmas. And a lot of people didn't get their Christmas packages in time. And it cost them, I read it, like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to refund all this stuff and redo it.
I wanted to talk about productivity because, like a lot of people, we have what seems like an Amazon driver in my driveway daily. And so I've talked to them before. I've never worked there, so I can't say firsthand, but they're notoriously a pretty strict company to work for. If you drive for them, they record everything. They have GPS tracking. They know how long you looked at that, if you looked at that, all this. But one of the biggest things that they are huge on is productivity. You have a certain amount of stops per minute. They tell you how to turn in and out of driveways. It's classic UPS stuff. You always want to be making right turns. Statistically, is the most dangerous to make left turns. I know you talk about this a lot, with test drives. But Amazon has figured out, hey, we have these people for a finite amount of time. I'm going to pay this person $100 today. It's pretty simple. Again, do you think that delivery driver makes them more money if he delivers 80 packages or 200? It's not any different than your technician. Did they go back and say, well, how do we make them deliver more packages? Is it, well, let's yell at them or let's pay them more? No, they are still all hourly, but they have technology, right? Process, procedures, training. And do you see that kind of like in a shop as well? Very similar kind of parallels?
Yes. And I will also say, like, all your fast food places or your fast casual places, like, they all have these same metrics. Like, if you ever go to Starbucks and go look at the drive-through counter and look at their screen up there. They've got like red and green, time to this, time to that, whatever. And they've got, I don't know what that number is for Starbucks, but they've got a time that they want, they want that customer out of their window within, just say, 3 minutes. That way they can get to the next one and keep the line. Because there's a thing in the restaurant industry called deflection. If somebody pulls up and the line's too full, then they'll leave and they won't go through the line. So back to productivity for our shops, though, one thing I think we haven't talked about that we should is there's a difference between technician productivity and bay productivity. What we see is a lot of shops that have 10 bays and 5 technicians, and everybody thinks that it's better to have, like a bay and a half or 2 bays per technician. And I used to be that way until COVID. And then when COVID happened and half of our shop was sick, you take a 4-bay shop with 3 technicians and 2 of them are out with COVID, you're going to go out of business because you don't have enough manpower to turn it. You can have a 10-bay shop with 5 guys that they're 100% productive, but your shop as a whole is only 50% productive. So one of the other things we track on our KPIs is bay productivity. And my shops that are really, really crushing it have a technician in every bay. And we have to make sure that we do a really good job on selling the tickets, getting parts and everything else. One of the things that we noticed with shops that have a technician with 2 bays is they'll bring a car in and let it sit there for 2-3 days before they finish it, instead of pushing it out and getting something else in to work on. So I think that's an important piece for us to talk about, is bay productivity versus technician productivity.
I think that you bring up a really good point there, because these numbers allow me to see even more, and same with you, right? I don't have to be in your bays or see your shop really ever, and I can tell, well, hey, we have more room to do work there. But yeah, like where we see that on the number side is, let's say that gross profit looks good. From a percentage standpoint, everything is looking good. And we look at the productivity. He's got 2 technicians. They're at 85% productivity, but they're not really making much money. Now, if we look at the individual technician productivity, you would be like, well, all of that is fine, right? These guys are doing well. But when Chris and I would look at that and say, well, this is an economies of scale issue. They just need more of this. You're doing this correctly. What we're saying is you probably going to need to add another person or 2. Whereas if you looked at that shop, for example, and yeah, productivity is 100%, but there is a 4-bay shop. So instantly when you see, well, actually you're at about 50% for your bay productivity, then pretty clear it's like, well, fill up these bays. Again, not rocket science, but you must have seen this enough of people not doing it that, it needs to be talked about.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And 2, whenever we're talking about growth, if you get, one of the things that I hate is people that get in, rattle their saber, and they're like, oh, I'm booked 3 or 4 weeks out. I'm like, that's not a good thing in my mind. I don't think I would ever want to be booked 3 to 4 weeks out.
So what is your magic? Do you want to ever be booked out? Are you ever telling someone that you're booked out, even if you are, or what?
I think if you think you're booked out about 3 days, then I think that's fine. But I got in trouble saying this in a class, and I want everybody to listen to the whole thing that I say before you just like freak out and go nuts.
Whoever's listening to this, make sure that we just clip this out of context so we can chop it up later, right? Yeah.
So we can get all the comments, right? I will tell you, I'm not like these other coaching companies, but what we need to do is we need to be saying yes to our customers and making sure that they have a pathway to come into the shop. But we also need to make sure that we're setting realistic times and standards for when we're going to get back with them, when we're going to get their car done and everything like that. I would never tell you to lie to a customer and be like, hey, I'm going to lie to a customer to get them in. That's not what I'm saying. I'm a say yes guy and figure it out. Like, so where our shop is, we're in a mountain community. So we have a lot of people coming through. And our very first day, the day after Labor Day that we opened, a guy calls in and is like, hey, I'm in town for a Jeep rally and I drove in from Florida and my Jeep is broke down. Can you help me get it fixed? And I was like, yeah, we'll figure it out. He goes, I called 6 other places and they were all 4 to 6 weeks out.
I think you had a really good point there, right? Is my shop in a place where no one comes and goes, I could be booked 4 to 6 weeks out and I could probably have an okay business. If you're in a place where you have tourist or seasonality, are you saying that that's probably the exact opposite and maybe you can't even have any? Because if you don't service that guy today or tomorrow, he's gone. He's out of the state. So you're going to lose that forever, right?
Or he's stuck, his family's experience was ruined because they couldn't get the Jeep out and whatever. I think of it as like, what if I went, we're out in our camper van now. What if I went somewhere and the camper van broke down and I missed everything I was doing because it was like, no, we can't do it. And I told the guy, I go, it's not like we don't have other stuff to do, but if you can get it up here to me, we'll get it in as soon as we can and take a look at it. And so one of the things we found is we fixed, he had an oil cooler problem. We got the oil cooler fixed and we were looking at some other stuff in a suspension and the left front wheel, I'm the last person you should be talking about on this. Something in that Jeep suspension and the left front wheel, there were a couple of things that were loose that were getting ready to that wheel assembly was just getting ready to fall off.
It's a Jeep thing.
It's a Jeep thing. So if we would have just fixed it and not looked at it, he'd have went out and got on the trail and that big old 43-inch tire or whatever would have come off there and he'd have been stuck. But because we did our job, we saved their vacation, saved their trip, and now they're back in Tennessee or Florida or whatever having a great time. So to go back to productivity, if your shop is 85 or 90% productive, then you need to figure out how do we bring on another person to knock that back down to 60 so we can build it back up to 85 or 90? Or what do we need to do that? And here's another thing that I don't like in the industry is you have a lot of coaching companies right now that they're like, oh, you need to be gobbling up as many shops as you can right now. And you need to buy this shop, this shop, this shop, that shop. And we see a lot of shop owners come in from those programs and they're like, hey, I was doing pretty good with my one shop, but I bought this second shop because I was bullied by my peer group. And it sucks. Like life is terrible. I'm losing money. I'm losing sleep because now I have this second location and life is just terrible. And so, we come in and help them kind of straighten that out. Some shop owners don't need a second shop. They don't deserve a second shop. They haven't earned a second shop. There's a lot of that going out there. And the other thing I would say is if you have one shop that is capable of doing 4 million, why would you stop it at 2 million and go get another shop that can only do 2 million?
And I've talked about this a lot. Like, I've been doing this a long time, over 15 years. And, for the first 7-8 years of doing this, a multi-shop owner was kind of a rarity. Was a handful of them. A lot of them were like more well-known. You just didn't see it that much. Flash forward to today, a large percentage of my client base is multi-shop owners. I think it probably used to be in less than single-digit percentage of average shop owners. And if you look at nationally, it probably is not double digits. But it could be 5%, which is kind of crazy to think about. And a lot of people, you have this fallacy of like, well, I'm going to triple my sales, right? Because I'm going to have 3 locations. I'm going to triple my profit. It's not that simple. Just like if you tripled the sales in your own business, good chance you couldn't triple the profit. There's no relationship between the two. The biggest thing that I tell people is this is all generally time. We are in a roundabout way exchanging our time for hopefully money if you're self-employed, right? Guaranteed money if you're working for someone else. But a lot of people, I think, look at multiple location and underestimate. Hey, I've learned everything that I can do now, so this is going to take me half the time to get up to speed. I'm going to make half the mistakes. And really, there is some synergy, but there is so many other added, layers of complexity. And the last thing that I'll say on it, I see from a numbers side is volatility. You are leveraged, just like leverage with investing. If I'm losing $1, I can make $1 or $2, and I can maybe lose $1. The stakes are very low. If I have $1 million, now look at that. Yeah, I stand to gain a lot more because a 5% increase is tens of thousands of dollars, but I also now could lose $1 million versus, $1 before. And that downside is where I think that you are getting people reaching out to you, Chris, is because a lot of these guys went to multi-shop during COVID, which is probably the 3 best years in this industry that I've ever seen, maybe that you've ever seen.
Might be the 3 best years anybody ever sees, right? Like, it was really good.
Well, we're paying for the sins of it now, right? Look at a lot of this stuff of like, hey, the reason why everything is so bad right now, a more complicated topic than that. But yeah, I mean, if you weren't making money, what's wrong with you? Before we let everyone go for today of getting to listen to you and I just chit chat about this, what are you seeing? Like, what are the trends? In a roundabout way, we started on a benchmark, which is looking at 23 numbers. What are you seeing right now in the shops that you're dealing with? What do you foresee for the rest of the year for shops? And then, maybe a rough guess on 25. We could see stagnation, inflation, deflation. What are you thinking?
You and I talk about this a lot, emails, and then whenever we get a chance to meet in person and have dinner. One thing is I don't have, I think I know what's going to happen, but I don't have a clue, right? But just because inmates are running the asylum and who knows what they're doing. Like, it's just like, I think I know what should happen, but it's crazy. What we're seeing right now is we're seeing some shops are doing really great, and this is not an issue, but the shops that are having the issue right now is they feel like the car count is less. But when you look at the numbers, if you look at September this year versus September last year, car count's identical. So car count hasn't gone down. And then when we dig into that further, we see that our average repair order has dropped and or our closing ratios have dropped. And so that goes right back into an issue with our estimates. Are we doing what we should be doing? Or, why is our closing ratio down? Then that goes into service advisor stuff. But it's interesting how many phone calls I've had the last couple of weeks. It's like, oh, it's slow, it's terrible, school's starting. And I'm like, well, let's look at your car count. And I'm like, well, car count's the same. Let's look and see what's different. If it feels like your sales are down, I would first tell you, look at your car count and then look at your processes and procedures and hold your people accountable to what you should have already put in place. That's kind of what we're seeing like right now. I don't want to say this because people will be like, oh, well, Chris said it, so that must be true. Typically going into election, people are a little bit weird and freaky and they don't know what money to spend or not. Overall, I think our industry is really, really strong. I think going into next year, it's going to be really strong. There's going to be some different things depending on who gets elected. We think of things in like worst case scenario terms, and there's never been an election where there's been somebody elected and it's been the worst case scenario, right?
I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask on that one, right?
Right. I think, but it's, I tell shop owners this all the time. It's never as bad as you make it out to be. The truth is in the middle. So whatever happens during the election, we're going to be just fine. I would lean more towards you on whether we're going to see more inflation or stagnation or whatever. But the fact of the matter is people are still not buying cars and new cars in record numbers, and their old cars are breaking. So they've got to get them fixed if they want to get to work. I did see like an earnings call from Target or Walmart or somebody that they're like, people that usually don't like flinch at higher grocery prices are starting to flinch. Whether that's true or not, or just BS scare tactics, I don't know.
I think you see that, right? I think you see that, if a lot of times when people talk about consumers, I always laugh. It's like, well, hey, you are a consumer in every other business besides yourself. So like, think about yourself is, hey, high grocery bills for 6 months is annoyance, right? You talk about it to friends. High grocery bills that keep on going up and up and up for 4 years, I mean, is financially ruining some people. There's real stuff here where it's like, people don't have money. And I hear that from shops where they're like, no, we did everything right. Our process and procedures were correct. We followed it to the T. We got to the root cause of the issue. We talked to, the customer. And even sometimes you can see these are businesses making the right move. Hey, you know what? That's okay for right now. I know money's tight. Don't spend that, right? It's not going to be a safety issue. We're going to fix it down the road. I think you could see some of that. Part of the reason of why COVID and the years after COVID was so good is exactly that. We had a lot of deferred work, but then magically everyone got, again, more money from PPP, from stimulus, from, I forget all of this stuff that they were giving out. Businesses and individuals, that it was a gold rush. People had found money and deferred work. It's kind of like tax refund season that never ended for 2.5 years. And what you're seeing today is, like you said, the opportunities are still there. These cars are still breaking, whether or not you see them. There is not more and more shops out there. So we have more cars with similar amount of people to service them. And I feel like you're right. A lot of people are like, oh, it's election year. you're dealing with such a small subset of a small subset that if you think you're going to be down because of election year, you're probably right, and vice versa.
And I started talking about 6 months ago to my shop owners, like, hey, you need to make sure, like, there are certain shop management systems that have, like, when you send your estimate out, it has like Klarna and Affirm on there, like, hey, do you need to break this up into 4 payments, which I think is a brilliant idea. But I started talking 6 months ago. I go, the thing that keeps me up at night is if we have customers that want to buy work that can't. And how do we get around that? And so the only way to remove that hurdle is make sure that you have alternative financing options that are good for them and good for you. And you start using them way before you need to use them. That way, everybody's into the habit. You get people approved, they're used to using it, and they're good to go. And so we did that with a lot of our shops, and our average repair order spiked. People said yes. So like, oh my God, this is great. So I think it's more of that. Like, so if you're a shop owner out there and you don't have some sort of alternative financing method that people can get approved, like, it doesn't do you any good to have some of these programs that you can't get approved on. And then just make sure that you're open, honest, and truthful with your people. Like, hey, this credit card does have a 20%, or 40%.
I was about to say at least
percentage rate. Then be like, hey, you need to have this paid off in like 4 payments. That way you don't get hit with the interest in the end. Just be open with them.
I see people talk about this. I'm like, oh, I'm not setting my, customers up for financial ruin. They're using Affirm to make 45 installments on concert tickets. Like, you're actually giving them something that is going to take them from A to B, keep their family safe. One thing I will say about this is I'm really curious to see what happens with Klarna and Affirm, because all the credit card companies just came out and made a major stance that they will no longer accept charges to pay that off. So,
payment for a credit card on that. Yeah.
People are getting buy now, pay later through Klarna, Affirm, anything like that. So anyone that doesn't know what it is, it's buy now, pay later. So shop gets the money. I think shop gets 97, 98% of the money. And then the customer deals with them and makes 6 payments. But what people are doing is, leveraging the leverage, and they would say, all right, I'll finance it through Affirm, and then I'll make the monthly payment with my credit card. Because if you don't have it in your bank account, what else are you going to do? Chase, American Express, all of these guys are coming out saying, we're not going to do this anymore. And what does that do? These are all unsecured loans. That's why they charge 40%. What I've seen on the front end is, Chris, you're exactly right. If you do not have alternative financing for your customers, it's a disservice to them. The average American is broke statistically in real life. Talk to people, they don't have this money. By not offering alternative financing, you're not really helping them out, right? Oh, I don't want to pay this kind of interest. They're probably either going to not get service that they need and have an issue, or they're going to go to one of your competitors that does offer this stuff. But it is getting harder. American Express is cutting people's limits. Chase is cutting people's limits. Affirm, Synchrony, all those people are cutting people's limits. And kind of like you said before, like at this point, who the heck knows what's going to happen? But you follow the money, there is some truth to it. So if Chase is getting nervous, if Affirm is getting nervous, if Klarna is getting nervous, should we just be like, oh, I think things are probably going well, for everyone? No. Is it all doom and gloom? No, not either. But yeah, it's a hard time out there for a lot of people.
And it's just completely interesting. But, you talk about that. Yeah, you can go get your socks and get 4 equal payments on your pair of socks or whatever. But I don't think Amazon, they do it, they offer it, but it's not through Klarna or Affirm. It's like through Amazon Pay or something. So Amazon,
they have their own credit card.
Yeah, they have their own credit card. So what you're going to see is the Amazon credit card. And as far as I know, I've never even thought about this, but I don't know if you can use Amazon credit card to pay for anything else other than at Amazon.
So it used to be when I had one years ago, because you got some bonus offer for getting it, it was a JP Morgan Chase product. Amazon is big enough now where it wouldn't surprise me, but I guarantee you that they go through one of these big ones. It's probably JP Morgan Chase, where it's like, no, we're not going to pay for that stuff either.
Yeah, the whole thing's interesting. So you asked me about 2025. What do you think is going to happen?
I think that if you look at what most shops are dealing with right now, it is a bad market in relative sense for most people compared to a year, especially 2 years ago. For 20% of our shops right now, and probably for the foreseeable future, they have not skipped a beat, and they probably will not skip a beat for whatever reason, whatever market they're in, etc. The biggest thing right now is if you look at this, the numbers don't lie, as in, when you strip this down, someone has to have money to pay me money. And someone has to have a job to get money to pay me money. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, going to happen next year, but the average American is completely broke. The average American has a job and is completely broke. If we know that unemployment really only has one way to go, which is up, to have people losing their jobs and everyone's already broke, then how could things get better before they get worse? So in a very sugar-coated way, I guess that's my doomsday speech. Also, the biggest thing is I think that from a merit basis, I could argue that too. A lot of people talk about, look, inflation is slowing down. Inflation slowing down means things are getting expensive less quickly, but it does not mean that they've ever gotten cheaper. And so for some of these sectors, even though if you watch the debates, they claim that those numbers are not true, a lot of these sectors are up 60, 70, 80, hundreds of percentage points pre-COVID. If they quote unquote get inflation in check, that does not mean any of those prices ever go to pre-pandemic levels. It doesn't mean that those prices will ever actually drop. And I think for a lot of sectors, arguably real estate and a number of other things, we actually need to see deflation in those specific categories. To have deflation in any kind of key categories without an overall recession has never really been done before. So yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, if you keep on stringing this economy along like we have been, you have what we have now, where technically it's a strong economy, yet if you ask the average person, they would disagree with that. Is that what's going to happen? Probably not. We'll probably get into some war that, wasn't even on the bingo board, Chris, and it'll all go haywire.
Yep, Philippines or Taiwan, somewhere there.
I was just watching that one. Yeah, I mean, Philippines is, the war no one is talking about in the South China Sea. We'll leave that segue for Fonzo. Only Fonzo could go to a benchmark report too. Have you seen what the Chinese are doing in the South China Sea?
We'll throw that challenge out for him and see if he can pick it up and go.
There's a little tidbit. Yeah, we'll see if Fonzo is a listener to this. Fonzo, if you're listening, we need you to equivalate working in a auto repair shop or run a repair shop to what the Filipino Navy is dealing with in the South China Sea. If you accept this challenge, release the episode. Now watch, Carm ends up getting in trouble because we have a statement against China. So hopefully if I've offended any of my listeners in China, I apologize. And so does Chris.
Please don't hack us or steal our information. I'm sure you already have it somewhere. But anyway.
Carm doesn't apologize. Go after him, not us. Okay? We are immune here.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, we'll see if this little tidbit makes it in there. Yeah, not sure. But Chris, I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate you getting all this insight. I mean, this is huge because I know that the benchmark was a useful tool. I think that you've shared a lot of pieces on, what you got out of this, but also too, I think probably put people a little bit more at ease of, these are fairly simple numbers that we're looking at here for very big real life problems that don't have easy solutions. So if someone does say, I don't really know where to go, I am that multi-shop owner that's struggling, or, hey, my numbers look nothing like this benchmark and I want to improve them. What's the best way for someone to reach out to you and see if you can help them out?
I mean, they can go to autoshopcoaching.com's website. I do no charge 30-minute evaluations with anybody. If, people want to talk, people want to see where they're at. Sometimes it turns into coaching. Sometimes it's like, hey, if I were you, I'd do these 3 or 4 or 5 things, grow your business a little bit. And then if you're ready, come back or whatever. Like I'll pretty much talk to anybody. You can also give me or shoot me an email, Chris at autofixsos.com. I'm always happy to help. Make sure you listen to the Weekly Blitz. And we do have a new podcast coming out called the Autofix Advisor Cast. It's going to be more for service advisors and service advisor training. So be on the listen for that.
Awesome. And we will put all the links in here in the show notes so that you can go and check out podcasts, a new podcast, and get in touch with Chris. So just want to say thanks again for coming on, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me. I don't know about your shirt, though. For those of you that are listening, I try to paint this picture. He has some sort of a gray camouflage sweatshirt on.
It's more greenish color, but yeah.
It looks gray. So when this hits YouTube, you have to go on and look and add your comments.
No, you won't be able to see it. Look, I'm perfectly camouflaged. All you see right now is a floating head talking to a microphone.
Yeah. Now, if you had a gray couch, that would be something. But the white couch, you're pretty much screwed on that one. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thanks for having me, Hunt.
So I hope you enjoyed that talk with Chris. I know that I did and learned a lot out of it. Remember, if you have any questions, ideas, or comments for a future episode, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. Just want to say thanks again for listening on the Aftermarket Radio Network. You can find all shows on the aftermarketradionetwork.com and on your favorite podcast listening apps. So thanks again for joining me on Business by the Numbers. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you all next week.
You've been listening to Business by the Numbers with Hunt Demarest on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Hunt on your favorite podcast listening app. Let him know what you'd like him to cover. His email is in the show notes. Hunt is all for advancing the aftermarket.